morning, students. Today we'll begin with the poem Pirate Story written by Robert Louis Stevenson. But before we begin with the poem, I would like to tell you that we'll be starting with guided reading from now onward. Now, what is guided reading? Guided reading is where I will read first and you are supposed to repeat after me, like we used to do in a classroom. Now, I'm going to read a few words or maybe a line, and you are required to repeat after me. So, let me give you an example how we will do it. What games do you like to play with your cousins? What games do you like to play with your cousins? Do you play games where you act like someone else? Do you play games where you act like someone else? So I hope you've understood how to read after me. So let's begin and read about the poet first. Know the poet. Robert Louis Stevenson, 1850-1894, was a poet, musician, and a travel writer. His most famous books are Treasure Island, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and A Child's Garden of Verses. Now, Robert Louis Stevenson, also known as R.L. Stevenson, was a Scottish novelist, essayist, poet, musician, and also a travel writer. He has written many books like Treasure Island, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, etc. And he was also one of the most popular and highly praised writers of his times. So the present poem written by him is Pirate Story, and in the poem he describes three children who imagines themselves to be pirates and to be traveling in a sea. So let's read the poem further to find out what else he has described in the poem. What games do you like to play with your cousins? Do you play games where you act like someone else? Yes. Many a times when the kids play, they pretend to be someone else. They like to role play. So in the poem given, the kids also, they are role playing or they pretend to be the pirates. Let's read. Three of us afloat in the meadow by the swing. Three of us aboard in the basket on the lee. Winds are in the air, they are blowing in the spring. And waves are on the meadow, like the waves there are at sea. Now, in the first stanza, the poet describes three kids in a meadow. Now, what is a meadow? Meadow is a grassy field. So, all the three kids, they are in a meadow and they pretend to be sailing in the sea. They imagine themselves to be pirates. Now, what are pirates? Pirates are the people who attack and rob ships at the sea. Presently, the kids, they are in a meadow, but they pretend to be in a sea. They say that the winds are in the air and this air has caused waves in the meadow. Now this line here, and waves are on the meadow like the waves are at sea. This line here is an example of simile. So you've already studied what is a simile. I've given you a video yesterday and an exercise related to it. So you know what's a simile. Let me just refresh this for you. Simile is a comparison between two things or people using the words like or as. So here the comparison is made between the meadow and the sea, the waves of the meadow and the sea, and the poet has used the words like. So this is an example of simile. Now the poet says that the wind in the meadow. You must have seen that when the wind blows, the grass in the field it sways or it moves. Similarly, the wind in the meadow is causing the grass to sway, and when the meadow is swaying and moving, when the grass is swaying or moving in the meadow, it looks like the waves of the sea. Before we move further now, let me tell you about rhyming words. So, what are rhyming words? Now, the rhyming words are the words which have same sounds. For example, gun, sun, run. Now, if you will say these words aloud, gun, sun, run. So these words, they have a similar sound and hence they are known as rhyming words. Now, every poem, it follows a rhyming scheme. And how do we work out the rhyming scheme of a poem? First of all, we'll see the rhyming words in a poem. Now let's find out the rhyming words in the first stanza. First word is swing. Swing doesn't rhyme with lee. But swing, it rhymes with spring. Swing, spring. And similarly, lee, sea. Now how do we work out the rhyming scheme? The words which are rhyming, for example, swing. Swing, we will mark swing as A. Now lee, as we all know that lee is not rhyming with swing, so lee will be your B. Now swing is A, lee is B. Spring, it's not rhyming with lee, but it is rhyming with swing. So spring will be A, and lee, it's rhyming with C, so it will be B. Now if I ask you what is the rhyming scheme of the first stanza, you will write it is A, B, A, B. So I hope you've understood how to work out the rhyming scheme of a poem. Now let us read further. Where shall we adventure today that we are afloat? Weary of the weather and staring by a star? Shall it to be Africa, a steering of the boat, to Providence or Babylon or off to Malabar? Now, in the second stanza, the kids are arguing that where they shall go for adventure at sea. They are wary of the weather. Wary. Wary here means cautious. They are cautious of the weather and steering by a star. Steering by a star means that they are following the star. In times, the star, it helped the sailors to find the direction. So here also the kids they don't want to lose the sense of the direction, so they say that they will be very cautious of the weather and also careful of the direction in which they will go. Now this line here, wary of the weather and steering by a star, is an example of alliteration. Alliteration. Now, alliteration also you've done yesterday only. Alliteration is a repetition of consonant in a line. For example, you can see here that here the consonant W and W is repeated, and similarly S and S is repeated. So this is an example of alliteration. So now the kids, they are confused that where they should go for an adventure, whether they should go to Africa, to Providence, to Babylon, or off to Malabar. Hi, but there's a squadron a rowing on the sea. Cattle on the meadow are charging with a roar. Quick, and we'll escape them. They are as mad as they can be. The wicket is the harbour and the garden is the shore. By Robert Louis Stevenson. Now, before the kids decide where to go, they see cattle on the meadow, a charging with a roar. A charging with a roar means making a noise. They imagine there's a squadron. Now, what is the meaning of squadron? Squadron means a group of aircrafts or ships. Now, they are pirates, so they decide to try and escape from them. In the end, they imagine wicket to be the harbour. Harbour is a shelter for ships and boats, and it is man-made. And shore means the land along the edge of a sea, lake, or other water bodies. So the kids, they imagine the wicket which is in the meadow to be the harbour and the garden to be the shore. Now you must be knowing what is the theme or the central idea of the poem. The poem is full of adventure and excitement. It is set in a meadow where three kids, they pretend to be a pirate and sailing the sea. The kids argue which place they should go, but before they decide, they spot a squadron and try to escape. Now that's it for today. So your assignment for today is to record an audio of the first two stanzas and submit the same in the class group between 12 to 12:30. Be very careful of your pronunciation, diction, and intonation, and when you are absolutely sure, then record an audio. So that's it. Thank you.